Well, welcome everybody. We're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for joining us for The Right Stuff. Some of you might remember that that was a movie title from a very popular film way back in the day about the Apollo astronauts. But today we're going to be talking about inventory, and that's going to be about finding the right stuff in the right place at the right time. And we have with us today Linda Pinion, who is the principal solution consultant at Sage Intact, as well as Wayne Richards from Avid Exchange, who will be talking to us about AP automation. So let's take a look, and I'll go through some housekeeping before we jump into our topic. If you, at any point during the webinar, if you have questions, please use the Q&A function, and I will pick a time where our presenters are taking a breath or there's a little bit of a pause and bring your questions to their attention. Don't be shy. We love the opportunity to answer questions. And if we don't have the answer right here and now, we will always get back to you. We are offering complimentary CPE credit at this webinar. If you are here for CPE credit, please note that all poll questions must be answered. And following the webinar, you will possibly receive 2 emails, but at least one. If you are here for CPE credit, you will be getting a separate email from our sister company with your CPE certificate. And we ask that you allow 2 weeks for that to get to your inbox. And then you'll be receiving an email from me, and that will contain the slides, a recording of the presentation, and a link to a survey. And I ask that you allow 48 hours to receive that. Because of their sponsorship, this is a really nice bonus for everybody who is on the session this afternoon. The second poll question, if you answer it, you will be automatically entered into a drawing for a $250 gift certificate from Amazon.com. And that's thanks to our sponsor, Avid Exchange. So even if you're not here for CPE credit, you'll probably want to answer poll question number 2. LBMC Technology Solutions wants to be the only technology partner you'll ever need. And obviously today we're here to talk about one of our solution offerings, namely ERP and financial management software, which is the foundational system of any organization. Since everything that flows through an organization at some point typically ends up in the general ledger. And while the general ledger and the accounting system is the heartbeat of any organization, it's just part of what we have to offer. With any type of system, security and safeguarding information, especially for healthcare organizations, is priority 1. And to that end, we offer preventative cyber attack protection. We've also assisted organizations that left the office on a Friday, come back on a Monday to discover that they have been the victim of a ransomware attack because they didn't have preventative software in place. We prefer to come in before the problem, but we're able to help you after the attack as well. In addition to technical solutions, we offer human capital resources, and that comes in the form of an outsourced help desk and IT services, or those human resources could come in the form of a fractional CTO or CIO. And these people are experts that work on your behalf. You may only need them part-time. You may only need them a quarter of the time. You may want to have them full-time. It really doesn't matter. We can fill that gap for you. We're also a Microsoft shop, and we offer cloud deployments in Microsoft Azure. And we offer Microsoft application licensing, anything from Microsoft Office to D365. And even on those Microsoft Office licenses, we can negotiate a pretty good deal on behalf of our clients. So in addition to this, there are a lot of tools out there like Power Automate, Power Platform, Copilot. We assist organizations with creating automations, integrations, and even custom software, and using these Power applications to tighten up interactions between different applications, as well as enhancing the actual application itself. So as I mentioned at the top, we want to be the only technology partner you'll ever need. And so the scope of our offerings and the 130 people on our team are all put in place to accomplish just that. So at this point, I'm going to stop. Actually, I'm going to do our first poll question today. Oops. And the first poll question is, can you let us know what ERP financial accounting solution you're currently using? So are you using QuickBooks? Are you using MIP? Are you using Sage Intacct? Perhaps you're using Microsoft Dynamics GP. Are you using NetSuite? Or maybe there's some other solution that you're using. And again, friendly reminder that if you're here for CPE credit, you must answer all the poll questions. Okay, going to give this a few more beats. Last chance to get in. And I'm going to be closing this down right now. So Linda and Wayne, this is how the ERP shakes out. We've got people who have used QuickBooks. We've got that's 17%, 35% are using Sage Intacct right now. We've got 9% who are on Dynamics GP, 9% who are on NetSuite, and a chunk, 30%, who are using some other type of ERP financial accounting. So now I will stop sharing and I'm going to turn this over to Wayne.
Thanks so much, Dawn. Go ahead and get the screen share here. Welcome, everyone. My name is Wayne Richards. I have been with AvidXchange for roughly 8 years and have played a number of different roles, but really excited to speak with you all about the relationship between AvidXchange and LBMC and how we help in the world of AP automation. So a little bit about AvidXchange, and I'm not going to read these slides. We're going to have some fun with it. We've been around for 24 years, and our core competency for all of those years has been AP automation. It's what we're passionate about, and we really serve anywhere from the small startups to the mid-market, and even get into the enterprise space, where individuals are just looking for a better way to do things, look at inefficiencies that are caused in the paper process, whether that be invoicing or just sending out paper checks. And through those 24 years, we've created what we call a payment network. And it means that we have paid on a 5-year rolling average over 1.2 million suppliers. And why that's important is typical customers that come onto AvidXchange, we've already paid 40% of their vendors or more in a lot of cases, where their vendors are already familiar with AvidXchange. They know where to log into a portal to check payment status or who to call if they have a question about a payment. So really good customer experience there. Now, we work with a number of different accounting systems. I saw something in the chat about Oracle Fusion. So there's just about anything that we can work with out there. We're a financial technology company, so we're like a bank and a tech company all rolled into one. So lots of different integrations. It's just how deep can we go? And I'm going to go into a little bit of that today. And then very unique to AvidXchange is we have a pretty large headcount for a tech company, because we understand that technology can only do so much. Bots that we create and automation can only do so much. We like to have a personal touch to not only our customers, but also our suppliers that we treat as customers. Now, when we look at the relationship with Sage Intacct, and even for those out there that are using QuickBooks, NetSuite, Microsoft, Oracle Fusion, number of others, we work to really enhance and augment what you're already doing in your ERP. Now, when you look at a full process from invoice receipt to payment execution, and these can be standalone products should you feel like you've already done some automation on one side, but you're looking to maybe look at another piece of the puzzle. But typically what we do is we work to receive your invoices from a number of different methods, whether they're mailed into AvidXchange. And again, we employ people to open up mail for you and put it on a scanner, get it into your portal and be completely paperless, or pull that from other sources, have that emailed in, put it on a scanner yourself. But ultimately, we're going to become your central repository for all invoices, so that those invoices are now electronically entered into a workflow and get to an individual or a department so they can take action. And that action can be anywhere from just coding to approving to making a comment, PO matching, validation steps, anything that really you are doing right now that you feel is manual. We're going to be able to help out in that process. Once it's a fully approved invoice, it gets into your Sage or any other ERP instance, where it's going to live there as if you entered that bill yourself. And then we're simply on the payment side, a payment option in your overall payment mix. Should you want AvidXchange to make payment, we become fiduciarily responsible to execute payment. And we give vendors or those suppliers multiple different ways on how they can receive those payments. We actually give them up to 22 different conditions of how they can receive those payments. So if they have a card, they want to receive cards, but only up to a certain dollar amount, or if they prefer checks, we're able to help in all of those different scenarios. The big thing here is the fraud mitigation. When we're cutting checks for you, your bank, your routing and account numbers are not out in the public. So we are then taking over that fraud risk. Now, a little bit about the integration with Sage Intacct specifically is that when we receive those invoices and put them through that workflow process, it then goes into your Sage Intacct as a created bill, which is what you're seeing in this screenshot right here. This can be a number of different accounting systems, but specifically to Sage Intacct, where we have an API, this is done automatically and is already mapped to those specific dimensions and different fields that you have created. We also will sync over a PDF link. So you're able to, in your Intacct instance, see the original invoice that AvidXchange had scanned. So this way you're not having to manage multiple systems. And really, your ERP as the system of record is now more complete while not taking up any storage space. On the payment side, you go through your normal workflow process. Once you decide what you want to pay, you can or that payment option in your ERP. And once you submit that payment, it's going to be marked paid, and the remittance detail, so clear check images or accepted direct deposits or virtual card payments, all of that is also synced back. So again, you're maintaining just one system of record and can have a multitude of different reports that you can do. Or should you want to just do those reports for audit purposes or anything, AvidXchange is also that repository where you can now run reports and see the invoice and the cleared check image or payment acceptance method all in the same report. That brings us to our next poll question.
All right, Wayne, if you would stop sharing,
Yes.
I will pull up mine. Well, I shouldn't have made that threat, right? Sorry about that. Here we go. Oops. Quick check, Wayne, can you see poll question number 2 there?
I can indeed.
All right, awesome. Just wanted to make sure. Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks. And here's the second poll question. And keep in mind, this is the one where if you answer this question, it's multiple choice, so you can pick more than one response. If you answer this poll question, you will automatically be entered into a drawing for a $250 Amazon gift card, which I wish I was eligible for, compliments of Avid Exchange. So we thank Wayne and the team at Avid, Kimberly and Stephanie, for their sponsorship of this webinar and having a fun little extra that we can offer our audience.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, Avid Exchange has been a very, very good partner and have had many, many successful implementations with LBMC Technology Solutions clients. So we enjoy working with them quite a bit. All right. So I'm going to end the poll in just a couple of seconds here. So please be sure to enter your answers.
And Wayne, I would just tell you that you have one of the coolest offices that I've been in a long time. I had the privilege of being in your office, and it is so cool.
It is pretty neat. They keep on doing more and more stuff to it too to make it very employee friendly.
Well, it's a great venue. I was lucky to be a co-host with Stacy from LBMC. We had an event there,
Mhm.
and it was just so delightful to see all the neat stuff that you had in your office for your employees.
Thank you.
So what we're seeing here, Wayne, is that almost 50% of the audience has selected integrating financial data across multiple systems. And I think that was
Mm.
sort of the key takeaway from your presentation is that seamless back and forth that we have between the systems. So very good. Thanks, everybody. I
Thank you.
will, oops. All right. And next up, Linda, I'm going to stop. Well, no, I'm going to do the slides for a little bit before you get into the software.
You are. You're going to be my driver, and
I
I'm
will.
and I'm going to say she's not drinking today, so she's driving safely. So that's a good thing, right?
It is. Yep, baby, I can drive your car.
Well, maybe so, maybe so. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time today. And certainly, LBMC is, just one of my favorites. We've worked together for a long time. I have been at Sage Intact for 14 years and have done a lot of these events with the LBMC team. So perhaps you have been on one of those events or been in one of those meetings and you've met me before. But again, I appreciate the opportunity. I wanted you to at least see what I looked like, so I turned my camera on. I'm going to turn it off to protect my bandwidth, but just to let you know, we are always happy to partner with Avid Exchange because we have a lot of folks that are using Avid. And to that poll, I would just tell you that companies that are using Sage Intact, we have found that 75% of companies are using two or more integrations. So having an integration as strong as Avid, creating that automation that every company needs. I always like to say that every company has to do two things. They have to pay their employees and they have to pay their bills. So anything that you can do to automate that, streamline that process, that's a good thing. And thank you again, Wayne, for highlighting what Avid can do to make that happen. All right, so today we're talking about inventory, and I'm going to talk about inventory in two different use cases. So the first use case that I'm going to talk about and share with you is what we call supplies inventory. So as I'm going through this, I'm going to paint a picture of a business process, but a process that happens in most every healthcare organization. And we know that we could have a mixed bag of companies on the call today. So you might be a healthcare organization that's perhaps doctors' clinics or dental offices, or it could be some other type of healthcare organization, even senior living, where they have an arm of healthcare that they're providing. So it doesn't have to be just one specific type of healthcare that we're talking about. But everybody has the ability to subscribe. This is a subscription-based solution to subscribe to inventory. And what you're looking at here is what we call a process map. We're going to invest most of our time in product today, so you're going to see this in a few minutes within the product. But just to give you a broad brush of what's in inventory, there are some key data elements in inventory. The most important one, of course, is your item master. And when you set up those items, those may be items that are supply items. They may be items that are not supply items. And we'll talk about the difference between those two different types of inventory items. What's important for you to know is that items can exist in multiple warehouses. So a warehouse doesn't have to physically be a warehouse. It could be one room that you've divided into sections and you call it section 1, 2, 3, 4. Does not have to be called a warehouse. And when you look at those warehouse locations for those items, there is appropriate information, meaning you want to know how many of an item you have, and you want to know how many you have on order from purchasing. So there's some inventory attributes that you're going to see in that item master, and we'll take a look at that so you can kind of get an idea of the information that's housed in that file. In the task swim lane, there are a couple things that I want to point out that are key to managing inventory, and that is to keep track of inventory movement. And when you think about inventory movement, you have inventory coming in. So you've bought something, you're receiving it in. You have inventory that you are either selling or consuming. So you're relieving inventory. So we've got the pluses and the minuses. And then in many cases, you will have adjustments that you need to make. So there's different types of adjustments. An example of an adjustment might be you have some product and you open the box up and whatever's in the box is broken. So you have damaged materials or product. If it's something that has an expiration date or something that could possibly go bad or spoil, you can record spoilage in a separate type of adjustment. You may go out and do what we call a cycle count and count to make sure that what the system says you have in that warehouse or that location is what you actually go out and count. So if I have 5 that I've counted, I want 5 to show up as my quantity in Sage Intacct. When you do that cycle counting, if you find that there's a difference, I counted 5, but Sage Intacct says I only have 3, you're probably going to go count it again, and then you're going to come back and make that adjustment so that you're keeping the warehouse and Sage Intacct in sync with exactly the right quantities. So those adjustments are things that you'll have an option to use to make different kinds of adjustments to the inventory. And then of course there's always some standard reporting, and we'll view some of that from our operations dashboard. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about this inventory. So moving forward, what do we need to know about inventory? Well, I've been working with inventory for probably 30 years now, and there are a few questions that everyone wants to know when you talk about inventory. What items do you have? How many of those items do you have? And possibly, where are they? Those are the top three questions. So think about inventory quantities and all of the importance of making sure that that quantity is correct. If I'm talking to someone and they ask me, do I have any of a certain product or a certain item? If I look in the inventory master and I see that I have 15 of those on hand, I need to trust that I have 15 on hand. So making sure that that number is accurate is really important, because I'm going to commit to something, or I'm going to relay that information to someone and they're going to make a business decision off of that quantity being correct. So making sure that I can trust that inventory data. If it's a supplies inventory item, and a quick example of that in healthcare, how many of you can do your job today in your role without having gloves? Of course, during the pandemic, it was gloves and masks and, all kinds of preventative type applications that we were using in our offices. But if I don't have gloves and I'm in a doctor's office, I'm probably going to be in trouble. So we want to make sure that we're tracking all of that inventory movement and that we don't run out of gloves. So understanding, what that quantity is impacts everything. It impacts when we're going to reorder something, how often we need to reorder, and what kinds of business decisions we can make based on the fact that we either have or don't have product. It's also important to know where the inventory is. So you may have gloves in multiple places. So think about that. It's going to be pretty important for you to know where they're at. And again, you may be stocking them in a big case up on a high shelf, and then you may be breaking that case and bringing that down to individual boxes. It would be important to know where are those individual boxes and where can I find them quickly. Tied to all of that, of course, is cost. Every time we buy something, whether we're going to consume it or we're going to sell it, there's a cost associated with that. And that's part of the cost of doing business if it's a consumable. Excuse me. So we want to make sure that we are tracking that cost and we are logging that, and we can have different costing methods in inventory. Most generally, people are using average costing, but that gives us an idea if our cost is for some reason going up extremely high. We probably want to take a look at that, because that's going to affect our expenses and our financial reporting. The goal of tracking and managing inventory is really for you to have the information that you need to become smarter and more efficient buyers. So if I already have 15 cases of gloves, I probably don't need to order more gloves at this point. So if I do that, I'm going to have excess inventory. I'm going to be spending money that I probably don't need to spend. So again, accuracy in inventory is the number one thing. If those numbers are not right and you're not keeping track and you don't have good processes, then your numbers are not going to be right and you're going to be all over the board making incorrect decisions. All right. So let's talk about the two different kinds of inventory. I've referred to them as inventory that you sell and inventory that you consume. So the inventory that you sell is different in that you are able to sell that to me as a patient. I'm going to give you an example. In a doctor's office, you sometimes can buy additional products. Not every doctor's office, but many that I've been in, they are selling some type of supplements or vitamins, and I'm going to use that as an example today. So those vitamins that they're going to sell to me is considered an inventory item that is sellable. I'm probably going to pull it off the shelf in the lobby or in the reception area. I'm going to take it to the counter and I'm going to say I'd like to purchase these vitamins. And they're going to create a transaction. They're going to ask me to pay for those. I'm going to pay for them and I'm going to take them home with me. Different than if we're talking about inventory that's consumed, now we're talking about, and again, I'll use the doctor's examining room. We're talking about things like tongue depressors and cotton balls and syringes and gloves and even that paper that's on the examining table, that protects us and keeps it clean and fresh for each one of us as a patient. I need all of those consumable items in order to see my patients and provide care. If I run out of them and I don't have them, then I've really hamstrung myself to being able to do what I need to do in that examining room. Now, the great news here is you can have both and manage both in Sage Intacct. So whether you're selling it or consuming it, you can have both in Sage Intacct. And you don't have to have both either. I mean, you can have both, but you are not required to have both. All right. So here's just a few points around inventory to kind of get you in the mode of why do people really want to look at managing inventory? Well, many of these steps in the process that I just talked about are still being done manually. And anything that you do manually, you know that it has the propensity to be incorrect. Whether you're using Excel, you're using just a piece of paper and a pencil, people are going to forget to write things down and record things properly, and that's going to cause you a problem. You may have inventory spread out into different locations. You may have multiple facilities where you have some inventory in each one of them. So keeping that visibility is going to be difficult because you can't see into all of those offices unless you have some way to have that within your operational system. You might not have a clean automated way to go out and do that cycle count that I spoke of to make sure that everything's in sync. And that's an important step. And if you're not familiar with cycle counting is what's allowing you to count a small portion of your inventory all the time. So we don't have to count everything wall to wall every day or every month. We're going to select certain items, and that might be because they're high usage items and we want to make sure we don't run out. It could be because we have multiple facilities and we want to make sure we keep track and it's accurate. It also could be a high dollar type item that we want to make sure that we're tracking, that things aren't growing legs and walking away. So we want to keep that information. It may be something that's lot controlled and has an expiration date, and that's another reason that you want to cycle count. All of this really leads to, if it's not all being tracked properly, you're not going to have the right reporting. The top one there is really about receiving, and this really is more around if you have different types of product. If we're talking about some sort of product that needs to be refrigerated or some type of product that needs to be stored in a certain place, maybe it's something that can't be put on a high shelf. So understanding where we put it and where we're going to be able to find it. And if we just put it anywhere, it's going to be really difficult for us to go and retrieve it. So those are some of the main pain points, if you will, for inventory. And let's just quickly cover this. This is what we're going to move right into software and talk about and see, is making sure that you understand the difference between supplies inventory and sellable inventory, and the fact that you can have both. Walk through that inventory consumption process. So a little bit of a picture of the day in the life of a supplies staff person. Also to learn how you can have that visibility to all of the inventory movement and be able to see that, analyze it, and do this from what we're calling a dashboard. and then take that information, not only the financial information, but the operational information, using those key metrics so that you can become a better, smarter buyer. All right.
Okay, we're up to our third poll question.
Okay. All right. So we'll give Dawn a minute to get that question up. And this is really, it's really helpful to be able to share this inventory information with you today, because this is something that, from a financial perspective, so if I have finance people on the phone, this is something that can really affect those uh, those statements that you're producing to track those expenses. All right, so the right stuff. My organization is challenged by, and Dawn's giving you multiple choice. So,
That's right.
yeah, unorganized receiving, that manual recording. Do you have multiple facilities, or you're in different locations? You're not able to do that cycle counting. And the last one is, of course, inaccurate reporting. And then maybe you have something that we haven't called out here. So we'll see how we stack up here. I'm going to kind of go with either manual recording or inaccurate reporting. Those are two that I think are probably some of the top ones that we hear.
Well, we have a surprise answer for you, Linda.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple more seconds. But actually, the answer, the majority of the answer is just such a good fit for Sage Intact. I'm kind of excited to see it. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. And the big one is the multi-entity, multi-facility, and geography, which
That's exciting, and as Dawn kind of alluded to there, that's a key tenet of our solution, because of the ability to have multi everything. I say we're, like that bagel that has all that stuff on it. We're the multi everything of accounting and financial management. So you can have multiple locations, as many as you choose to. You can have multi-currency. You can have multi-ledger, multi-book. As I said, we're multi-everything. So yeah, everything bagels. There you go. Someone else is a foodie. All right. Thank you so much for your responses. I think it's time for me to go into Sage Intacct. So Dawn, if you'll give me permission, or can I just share this myself?
yep, just share your screen.
Okay. All right.
I'm out of there.
And Dawn, can you just verify that you can still hear
Yes,
me and you can see my screen?
I can still see you or hear you, and I can see that we're in Sage Intact
Yeah,
operations.
absolutely. So those folks that are already Sage Intacct users, thank you so much for your support of Sage Intacct. And this might look familiar to you because this is one of our dashboards. It's one that I have created specifically around inventory. These dashboards have real time up-to-date information. You can create as many of them as you choose to. I like to say they're the adult Etch-a-Sketch, so you can pull in different types of information. I've started out here with some inventory key performance indicators. And then if I scroll down here, you can see that I've got some reporting as well. So an item activity report. When I talk about inventory movement, this is what an item activity report is going to show me. It's going to show me every time I touch that item. And in this particular case, the item is vaccine. So it tells me every time I purchase it, every time I receive it, any adjustments that I make, if I sell it, if I come in and do some cycle counting and have some adjustments. So this is just really tracking all of that activity and letting me know what has happened. And that ties back to my current levels of inventory. So it's a way for me to do some inventory reconciliation. One of the other things, since we talked about multi-entity being a thing, you might be transferring some of this product. So let's say that you have the model where all the gloves come into one central location. So you order them, they come into that one central location, and then from that one location or warehouse, you're transferring it out to the other doctor's offices, clinics, or facilities. So we're going to track all of those transfers. So you're going to know, I had 1,000 cases in warehouse 1, and I transferred 100 of those cases to warehouse 2. So that's going to give you the ability to not only transfer the quantity, but also that reflects the cost and the inventory valuation, because now I have those 900 cases left in warehouse 1, and I have 100 cases over here in warehouse 200, and then the value of that inventory is going to be reflective of that. I talked a little bit about, being able to track damaged information, or maybe you want to look at some information around something that has a lot number on it. So that's another capability that's big in healthcare. Some items have expiration dates and they are tracked by a lot number. If you are selling those vitamins, as I talked about, you might be selling vitamins, you might be selling different types of supplements, and you want to break those out. This is a report that's showing me the top items that I'm selling, not consuming, but selling. And then I can also see a report down here on slow moving items. And this is going to help me plan and prepare and look at what I need to do, maybe from a purchasing standpoint. If I've got some things that are really selling hot, then I want to make sure that I get those purchase orders created and get that inventory replenished based on those sales. So this is just a recap quickly of a dashboard that you could create for operations. One of the things that we have added most recently to the dashboard components is something called custom navigation. I'm going to use this today because this is a quick way for me to navigate, and I can do all of this right from my dashboard. So I've set up this little menu that's going to allow me to go where I want to go very quickly from the dashboard, and that way I don't have to menu travel. I can if I choose to, but this is fast for me, so this is the route that I'm going to take. This has taken me right into my item master, and the first thing that I'm going to do excuse me, is I'm going to search for that item called gloves, and let's cover just a few pieces of information about the gloves. Important is that I have identified, it's a little faint here, but I've identified that this is a supply item. So that little checkbox is indicating it is a supply item. It's not an item that I will sell. I will only consume it. But it is important for me to know the quantities that I have of this item. So all of these quantities here are important to me, and it tells me that I have 100 of these available and I have 100 of them on hand. Now, if I had any on order from purchasing, that would show up in this bucket here. If I had some that I transferred between those warehouses, it could show here in the in transit. As I set up this item of gloves, I can have different units of measure. I can have different costing methods, and I can indicate where I'm going to charge that or code that from the general ledger perspective. So I have a GL group here that I've set up. At the bottom here, remember that I can have multiple warehouses and I can have different quantities and information about those items in each warehouse. Now I'm only showing one warehouse here, but I can have as many of these warehouses as I choose to. And again, you see all of these buckets here with the appropriate numbers in them to say, I've got 100 and all 100 are in warehouse 1. Now, there are several tabs here about that inventory item. You can track that item multiple ways. So if this was an item that perhaps was serial or lot or was stored in multiple bins, those are some of the things that we're indicating here. As well as we'll keep track of vendor history, we'll keep track of the cross references between the item numbers, what I call it versus what perhaps the purchasing vendor calls it. and any item attributes. So this is really all the information that I've set up for this item called gloves. So what I'm going to do here, Dawn, is I am going to try to hide this little control. There we go. Get it out of my way. All right, so that's my gloves item. The next place that I want to go to is I want to talk about the scenario of this supply item, this glove that we're going to want to order. We're going to order that through purchasing. So what I've done here is I've already added a purchase requisition. So let's pretend that I'm in a facility in another city and we need gloves in our facility. So I'm going to enter a purchase requisition, and you'll notice it's called a supplies requisition, very specific, and it's going to be to a specific vendor, and it's going to have the information about the item that I'm requesting. So in this case, it's gloves. I want to bring it into, excuse me, a specific warehouse. I've indicated the quantity and the price. So I've already got this requisition created, and in my case, I've sent this out for approval. So I created it, I submitted it for approval, and it has been approved. So that's what this history tab is showing me, is that Tom went ahead and approved that. So the purchase requisition has now been created. The next step that we want to look at, excuse me, is our supplies workbench. Now, I think that this workbench, for those of you that are already using Sage Intacct, I think this workbench concept is quite handy. And here's why. When I keyed in that purchase requisition and submitted it and it got approved, it immediately dropped into this workbench. So there's those 25 gloves that I have requested. And what the workbench does is gives you an option to do different types of activities or transactions from this one screen. So if I come over here and I look at this action drop down, you'll notice several things that I can do. So remember, I already have 100 of these gloves in the warehouse. So I really don't need to order any more because I already have 100 and I've asked for 25. So I could immediately just come in and say, I want to issue those 25 out to Linda's doctor clinic. And I can do that right from here. It's going to take those 25 out of inventory, and it's going to create the appropriate GL transaction to take that cost to my facility. What if I say, well, I can't get those 25 fast enough from the big warehouse. I need to have them just shipped directly to me from the vendor. I can create a direct shipment here, which would issue that information to the vendor, and they would send it right to my location. So I would bypass getting it from the main warehouse. I also can look at replenishment, and I can look at how I maybe want to change replenishment so that we don't order as often as we have been ordering. So lots of different options here right from this one screen. If we come and look at all of these different supply requisitions here, you'll notice I've got some office supplies that I've thrown in here as well. You can see that it's going to give me an opportunity to have a status by line. So this one here is a brand new request. This one here is telling me I'm missing a ship via. This one here is telling me that I have inventory available. So I could go ahead, just like I could with this 25, I could go ahead and issue that amount, that one that I am requesting. So this workbench, it exists in two places. It's going to exist in inventory and it's going to exist in purchasing. Same workbench, but just so that you can get to it from multiple places. So we've got an inventory workbench and a purchasing workbench. So if we come back and we look at the inventory workbench, we're going to see that same view. So whether you have an inventory user designated to get to this supplies workbench, or you have a purchasing person that is designated to get to this workbench, it's on both menus. Now, what's the beauty of this? Well, old school, if I'm sitting out there and I need 25 gloves, I'm probably going to call someone and I'm going to say, hey, I need 25 gloves. And they're going to go to the warehouse. They're going to pull those gloves. They're going to write down on a piece of paper, or they're going to enter into an Excel spreadsheet those 25 gloves. And that transaction is then going to turn into a transaction that I'm going to have to re-enter into Sage Intacct to get that inventory correct. So I'm going to eliminate all that manual entry. No one's going to have to remember to go create that journal entry. And the best news is that's going to keep me from having out of stocks, because I'm going to be doing that information online real time. And I'll also have the ability to set up replenishment, so I know and the system can tell me when it's time to reorder that inventory. So this is a big deal to anyone and everyone who wants to track those consumables. It's part of you running your office and having that equipment or material when you need it and not running out of it. Now, let's take a quick pass at the other piece of inventory. And the other piece of inventory was talking about selling something, and I used the example of vitamins. So within Sage Intacct, to do that, I would go in and I would enter a sales invoice, and I might even start with entering a sales order. But since I'm just going to pull it off the shelf, take it up to the counter, and pay for it, I could do that in a one-step process. I could just enter a sales invoice that is affecting my inventory, and that's what I've done here. John Jones has come in and he's brought these vitamins up to the counter, and I have an item set up for vitamins, and I've just entered that in, and I've gone ahead and said he wanted one of those. I have 5 of them on hand, so I have plenty. And in this case, this was a lot controlled item. So I actually entered in the lot number. So if there was ever any problem and I needed to know, I have full lot tracking. So this is going to create that invoice. It's applied tax. So John owes me $53.13. And since he's standing at my window, I've asked him for the money and he has paid me. So at the same time that I am creating that invoice, I'm also recording that payment. So I've affected my general ledger with a sale. I've reduced my inventory, and I've also hit my cost of goods sold, and I've recorded that cash because I have a cash receipt. Now, here's the beauty of what we just did here. We have taken both inventory that we sell and inventory that we consume, and we're able to manage both of those in Sage Intacct. All right, so Dawn, I'm going to ask you to take it back.
All right. All you need to do is stop sharing.
Okay. So let me see. I don't see my little, I got rid of my controls, so I don't see my stop share button. Dawn, is it,
Let me see. I'm going
can
to
you take it back?
request.
Oh,
I'm going
here
to
we go.
try.
Yeah, I just approved for you to take it back.
All right.
So I just want to quick give some wins with utilizing the inventory in Sage Intacct. So as Dawn's getting that back up, first of all, being able to do both sellable inventory and supplies inventory in one solution, being able to track that information in different locations, being able to know what inventory you have and where it's located, being able to do that cycle counting that some people are not able to do. Those are all quick wins that you can actually see and recognize by implementing supplies inventory in Sage Intact.
Can you see
So
the poll
let's,
question?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we've got a final poll question that we want to ask you, and
Yep.
that
And so
is,
one of the things that LBMC Technology Solutions likes to do is, like, today we've had a bit of a lunch and learn over inventory, but we'd like to flip the script. And if you would like to meet with us, have lunch on our dime, and talk to us about your challenges and where you see your digital transformation headed in the future, we'd be more than happy to set that up. And in fact, my colleague Emery Quince, who works in client engagement, he would be the one that would set that up at your convenience. You could have a couple of team members on this call. Maybe there's some things that, what should my timing be? How involved is upgrading from a legacy system to a cloud-based system? These are the things that we'd be happy to discuss with you. So take a few moments, and the choices are yes or just not yet. And I'll give this a couple more beats and then I will end the poll.
I would take advantage of it because I know LBMC does great lunches.
That is true.
That is true. You won't be getting a bologna sandwich, I can assure you.
That is true. Very good. All right.
Okay, I think I had covered the quick wins, but this, of course, will be in the deck. Again, just making sure that you know what inventory you have, where it's at, being able to find it quickly, not running out of those all important things like gloves and cotton balls. All of the functionality of inventory for supplies inventory, as well as if you are selling those healthcare products, you can also take care of that sellable inventory as well.
And we did poll question number 4. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I really want to thank Linda and Wayne for bringing just excellent content and presentation to our audience today, but mostly we want to thank you for joining us. So we're going to be having future healthcare webinars. Keep an eye on your inbox. We'd love to have you return and learn about a new facet of healthcare. Thank you, Linda. Thanks,
You're
everyone.
welcome. Bye, everyone.